everyone, my name is Carrow Brown and I write urban fantasy and I also write romance under the name of Faye Black, and I'm here today to tell you about how I was able to draft a book in a week. Now I'm saying I drafted the book in a week because I did in fact write 65,000 words in the course of 7 days, and I learned a couple of things that I wanted to share with you guys, and maybe if they are applicable to you, you can use them and maybe speed up your own writing process a little bit. But before we dive into that, I kind of want to give a little bit of background about how we got to this point and, some links that you might find useful that you can look at later if you have a moment. The reason I did this challenge was because on Tamara Wood's channel, she's got a series of videos and it's called Writer's Workshop, where we review writing craft books and we give our thoughts and opinions. And we read one by Kate Hall and it was called A Book a Week. And in my giant excitement, I actually wanted to see if I could take the things that were in that book and apply it and actually write a book in a week. I kind of semi-pressured everybody on the panel to do it with me, and we all did the challenge and we did our own accountability for it. If you are interested in any of that, I will have a link down below in the video description, both to Tamara's channel, to the video in question. I will have a link to the book if you would like to give it a gander yourself. And Kate Hall is actually here on YouTube as well, so I will have a link down to her video so you guys can snoop away on that as you would like to. Now originally I was just going to go ahead and use this challenge to finish up Sparks Flying that I've been trolling Tamara with for about almost 2 years now. But what ended up happening was something completely different, and I think that played a really big part about why I was able to do this challenge. So the day before the challenge, I was on a 4-day weekend, which I haven't had in a very long time, and so I remember the day before we started the challenge, I was waking up, and when I sat up, I had a thought of that would be a fun story to write. My poor husband was trying to talk to me all morning, and I was just hunched over a legal pad, just immediately drafting out the story. I filled out 4 pages from start to beginning of an outline, and I remember looking at it and going this is it, this is the story that I need to write for this challenge. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because that was a really big inspiration, a really big motivator. I was very excited to write this idea and to explore it. It was fresh, it was new, it was not something I already had drafted, so it was shiny new project syndrome. So I think the fact that it was a new idea and new everything, and just kind of really gave me something to gnaw my teeth on, and that was how I hit ground running on day one, and I wrote 11,000 words. In fact, on average, I wrote anywhere between 10 to 12,000 words throughout the entire 7 weeks, and if your eyes are going big at that number, yeah, it is a big number, but I also had time, because one of the things that also happened is, obviously, I actually worked 2 jobs, right? And so it's really hard to write 10,000 words while you're working 2 jobs. And I ended up doing a touch base with one of my, the main job that I work, and I was kind of hey, I'm kind of doing this thing. I was wondering how much you guys were going to need me this week. And my boss basically said, if you can get your actionals done by the end of the day, I don't care when you do them. So what I did was I would wake up at 6 a.m., roll out of bed, come into this office, and I would just sit here and just start writing like nobody's business. And my husband, very kind, very supportive, would come in, bring me coffee, check on me. Every now and then he would fill up my cup of water. He really left me alone. I feel kind of bad because I think on day 5 he was kind of please don't forget me. But yeah, so I would wake up, roll out of bed, and then be finished by 1, which is about 7 hours of writing for 10,000 words. And I was using writing sprints the entire time like the book suggested. I fiddled with it a little bit because I got a lot of good progress when I was writing for 30 minutes at a time, but if I tried to go 40 or I tried to go 15, it wasn't as consistent. So for me, writing for half-hour blocks with 10-minute breaks was actually really beneficial to me. And that's a really big thing that Kate Hall kind of talks about in the book, is that she writes in sprints. So if you haven't tried that, I would recommend it. And there happen to be a couple of channels that do that here, mine being on Friday, not to self-plug myself, but if you're interested. So the first 2 big takeaways, just to recap it real quick before I move on to the third one, is that I had inspiration and I had a shiny new project, and then the other one was that I had time, because obviously writing 10,000 words in one day doesn't just happen like that. So those were 2 really beneficial things that really helped me do that. And the third one is that I had content knowledge. I had a lot of background knowledge in regards to what it was I was writing about. And the reason I point that out is because one of the things that's tend to hold me up when it comes to anything that I'm trying to write is that I have to stop and go research something. But for the nature of this project, I didn't have to research anything. I knew enough about the 2 people's backgrounds and their careers that I didn't have to go and double check anything, except for one thing, because the lady in there is an industry artist, and I had to go talk to my friend that is an industry artist and be kind of hey, when you're applying to places, how do you actually do it? And so he told me and explained it, that whole thing and what the work culture was like, which 90% was what I already knew, but like 10% I was like, oh. And I did have one tiny hiccup that I was able to go and fix, but it was actually about the main character's mother's job, because I decided I was going to have her go and be like somebody who makes like body products like body butter and things like that. And then I started to write about it, and I remember looking at the page and going like, I don't know a damn thing about this. And so I had put like a pin in it to like go research it after the fact and moved on, because I didn't think it was going to play like a huge part in the story. And it doesn't outside of aesthetics, but I'll tell you what, like that little side adventure exploration thing was actually really fun. And there's a lot of body butter in my house right now. I talked about kind of how it went and why I was able to meet the goal. I think it would only be right if I told you the consequences of me actually trying to do this challenge. So first off, 10,000 words a day, 2 jobs. My brain was absolutely fried by the time Friday came around. I remember on the very last day of writing, all I was doing was like kind of like smoothing and tying transitions together at the end of the story. And I remember thinking about like how mentally exhausted I was, because on a typical day I write anywhere between 3 to maybe 5K depending on how excited I am for what it is that I'm writing. But doing 10K consistently every day, that was not something that my brain was ready for, on top of doing all my other obligations. So like just I was very happy when that following Sunday came and I just kind of slumped in my chair and like I think I played Stardew like all day. Like that was what I did. The other consequence is that my house completely suffered, 100%. I usually do all of the cleaning and the maintenance and the tidying and things like that, and by the end of the week, the place was trashy. And I don't mean trashy in like, you know, Carrow's idea of like, oh, I need to declutter. I mean like boxes were everywhere, dishes hadn't been done, my dogs hadn't been walked, like all that other stuff. While I was very happy to have that book done, I was not happy about all the work that I had to do in my home afterwards. And so if you've got somebody else that takes care of the house for you, cool. Otherwise, And on reflection, I probably could have done like cleaning sprints. So between when I'm, you know, writing and I take like those 10 to 15 minute breaks, I could have gotten up and loaded the dishwasher or tidied things up or anything like that. But I was so like obsessed with this story that sometimes what would happen is on the breaks is that I would go and like, you know, kind of research like certain things or go look up aesthetics or talk to the cover artist, because I was so set that this story was absolutely going to happen that I went and had a cover for it. And this is the cover. I absolutely love it, and I cannot wait to put this thing out. But yeah, so those were the consequences. Taxing my head a little bit. My house was not in order. Obviously, my poor husband, I keep saying this phrase, my poor husband was a little neglected during this. And so I made sure that we spent like time together like afterwards. So kind of like work-life balance was definitely not happening while I was obsessed with writing this story. But you know, I did learn a couple of other things, but I know some of you have a really good question that you're going to ask, which is the writing any good? So I have gone back and read probably the first 8 chapters of the story that I wrote, and outside of like missing words or a wrong word in a couple places, it reads pretty good to me. I did have an alpha reader take a look at it because I was like, I need you to tell me if this is like a dumpster fire or not. And they told me that it actually read really good, it had a nice flow, and they were looking forward to it. And of course they pointed out like typos and missing words and all that jazz, because it is literally a vomit draft. I did no editing, no nothing. It's okay, that's what I'm going to say, because drafts are always okay, and you can always make them better. And my plan is to make it better and to put it out. My plan is to actually get this edited and put it out in the world. My original plan was to have the self-edit done by the end of July. You're seeing this video in August. That didn't happen. Mostly because one of the 2 jobs that I worked completely exploded in a good way, and I just haven't had time to sit down and go through it like I usually do. In fact, I'm revamping my entire like morning routine so that way I can fit writing and editing into it before I start jumping into work, which means I wake up earlier, but whatever. So I found this challenge to be a major success for me. Of course, like there are like the factors involved, like I don't have kids. I didn't really have to do too much around the house outside of fixing it when I got done. And then my job was very willing to kind of like leave me alone for the duration of the week while I wrote this. If I had to have taken care of any additional things, like actually like, you know, work, deal with the house, if I had kids, there's no way I could have been able to do this. Like it just wouldn't happen. Those other obligations would have gotten in the way. But there's a lot of things and methods and approaches in this book that would be applicable to you if you are trying to actually, you know, speed up your writing process a little bit. Even if it's just for an hour every day, I believe the techniques in this book that Kate Hall has shared are going to be beneficial. And I would recommend that you give the book a try. Or if you want to go and see what we had to say, because we do discuss those techniques over in the Writer's Workshop video, you can go over there. It's like an hour long. You can just listen to us in the background and, you know, see if it's something that you want to try. But that brings us to the end of the video. If you you were interested in trying this challenge or you actually did the challenge. I would love to hear how that went. I've got a comment section. Fill it in with your thoughts and feedback. I'm very curious about, you know, the opinion on this, if it would work for you, if not, why for, why not, all that goodness. And I got a couple other videos here on the channel that you might be interested in. They're going to play here in just a second if you guys are interested in something that might be pertaining to you or something that I've done before. But that's it. Thank you guys so much, and I will talk to y'all again real soon. Bye!